Hi, everyone. With the 2019-2020 school year coming to an end, usually right about now, we'd be preparing for final exams. Well, since that's not happening this year and the school year's ending in somewhat unusual fashion, I decided instead to reflect on what I learned this year from my students. So when I thought about trying to come up with the best possible way to do that, I thought back to one of my favorite performers, David Letterman, and decided to do a top 10 list. So without further ado, here are the top 10 things that I have learned from my students in 2019-2020 school year. Number 10, kids like school, just not school. Most students probably will not remember how the Crusades helped end the Middle Ages and how they caused the Renaissance, or the main functions of mitochondria, but they will remember funny moments in the hall with their friends, that time when the water main broke and school got canceled for the day, or maybe that time when their history teacher taught them how to make Kool-Aid during class. It's not important necessarily to know how much the Titanic weighed and how fast it was traveling. What matters most is that it hit an iceberg and lives were lost, and a higher percentage of lives were lost by lower class passengers than those in first class. Standardized test data, multiple choice tests, unit tests, they don't really tell us anything meaningful about our students. Yet we continue to focus on this data. And as I reflect on this school year, what I realize we need to be doing is asking our students to reverse engineer what happened. Why did the ship sink? Why did the Renaissance happen? Why did a disease like the Black Plague, or in the case right now, COVID-19, why did it spread? How did it spread? And how can we do better? How can we make improvements? The world doesn't necessarily need standardized test takers. The world needs creative thinkers, and when given a voice and a choice, students can and will do great things. I've seen it in the last 60 days with my students, and I'm very excited about what they're capable of doing. Number 9, ready for college isn't what it used to be. We often fall back on the line, this is preparing them for college. They need to be able to take tests. They need to be able to take notes. They need to be able to do X in order to do Y. All to justify how we teach and how we assess students and expect them to complete their work and get to class on time and follow this 8-period schedule. But the college that we're preparing kids for, it's not the same college experience that any of us had, whether it's 3 years ago or in my case, 33 years ago. I went to a great high school. I had a great ACT score and a great GPA. I still wasn't ready. I had no idea how to manage my time. I had no idea how to manage a budget. I had no idea how to really function outside of my own world, where I was dealing with a schedule that was managed by a bell in high school. And so it wasn't until I got to college that I learned how to manage my time, how I learned how to manage myself and my own responsibilities. I had no idea that the world was filled with people who had a different story than that of my own, who came from a different background. Because until I went to college, all I knew was an 8-period schedule, go to school, go home, do my homework, do my sports, and then repeat it all again. Kids today, they want and they need to learn time management. The last 2 months of e-learning has forced a lot of our kids to learn how to manage their time. And as unfortunate as the experience was, the feedback I'm getting from kids is they've had to learn how to budget their time and set aside time to do things. And I think that's something that as a teacher, I want to be able to help them do better. Students need to be able to collaborate with one another. And unfortunately, e-learning has limited those opportunities, but there are ways to collaborate digitally with each other. And I think we can do more of that. And students also need to have a voice in what they will learn in a class like world history. I think if given a choice of things to explore, students will find something that interests them and they will dig deep and learn lots of amazing things. So the concept of getting kids ready for college, I think we can revisit that, because college isn't what it used to be. Getting ready for it is not what it used to be. And most certainly students going to college next year are facing something completely different. Number 8, normal will never be normal. And I guess along with that, the only thing we know for certain is uncertainty. When the time does come that we can return to school, everything will be a little bit different, or maybe a lot different. We've all changed in some way because of this experience. My students have had to face real world matters that are unlike anything that I've ever had to face in my lifetime, let alone at age 15. And as a result, when we do finally return to school, we can't just pick up where we left off as if nothing happened and go about business as usual. As teachers, we've changed, our students have changed, obviously the world has changed. Our students, and myself included, have learned that nothing in life is certain, and we as teachers need to be a stabilizing force. Not by just teaching our predetermined calendar of lessons for the whole school year that's all set and figured out through May of 2021, but instead by providing a stable structure of support and flexible teaching methodology that's focused on student needs over standardized test results, what my schedule of how my lessons go, and this is how I've always done things, and this has worked in the past, and just keep redoing things. Things are different, and our kids are going to expect different. They need different, and me as a teacher, I've learned that some of what we've done in the classroom might work really well sometimes, but in other situations it does not. And so looking forward, what I've learned, especially from my students this year, is that they do want to learn. Maybe they don't want to learn the content exactly as it's scripted out and as it's taught, but they do want to learn. They have a desire to acquire knowledge. Everybody does to some degree. So perhaps it's time to rethink what we focus on and give kids more freedom to explore topics that are relevant to their own lives or their own personal history or their own story, as opposed to just teaching kids how to memorize things for a test. Give them some ownership. Let kids know that teach them how to research, teach them how to use tools on Google to do deep research. There's more to it than a Google search that turns up Wikipedia. And in this time away, I've had time to look at different ways that we can teach kids how to research. And I think that as a social studies teacher, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to give my kids more of a voice in what they want to become experts in, as opposed to making them experts on a test. Number 7, in high school, kids have 6 bosses, or maybe 7, or maybe 8, depends on how many class periods and how many classes that they're taking. They can have as many as 6 bosses. Think about that. We have 1. Each one of these bosses, teachers like me, ask them to complete tasks 6 different ways. Nobody has the same expectations, and not that we should, but as teachers, we expect our kids to conform to my way of doing things, our way of doing things, because someday they're going to have to do that for their boss in the real world, which is true. But did I mention kids have as many as 6, 7, sometimes 8 different bosses? When you step back and think about that, we are overwhelming our kids in an already overwhelming world. Perhaps as teachers, maybe we, and I'm going to start with myself, can try to conform a little bit ourselves by trying to streamline what we do, to try to make things just a little bit easier for them to understand, and using the tools that we have, like Canvas as our LMS and Google Apps as a consistent tool, so that the kids are used to seeing things a certain way. Our students, and most certainly the adults that are at home helping them, especially in e-learning, They will be forever grateful. So let's not forget that in the real world that we're preparing our kids for, there will have one boss. So maybe we as teachers can adapt our way to be a little bit more uniform. Kids will also not have to move their workspace 8 times a day in the real world. So, one of the things I've learned over the years is that when kids forget something, maybe it's not just lack of organization as much as it is a byproduct of how we do school. I'm fortunate as a teacher that I get to stay in one place all day and I don't have to move 8 different times and take all my stuff with me. So keep it in mind. Number 6, everybody wants a snow day, right? Well, that is until you have to stay home for 2 whole months. So after this experience, I don't think any of us are going to view a snow day the same. I will never again take for granted the time we have in school with each other and with our students, with our colleagues, just being there every single day. I miss everyone so much, and I know I personally will never wish for a snow day ever again. Number 5, the digital divide is real. I thought that I had adequate bandwidth in my house, and I very quickly learned that on any given day, for no apparent reason at all, our family of 3 has trouble with the simplest digital tasks, like loading a web page or checking email. Forget about trying to log on to a Zoom or a Google chat. Just loading a web page sometimes was a challenge. I'm fortunate to have the ability to provide high quality, mostly reliable internet at home. But many of our students do not have access to consistent or reliable internet connections, or maybe they think they do, but because of other, whether it be the physical structure that they live in or the location of the router, whatever it might be, the time of day that students are trying to access things and other family members are trying to do the same, that it's not always consistent or reliable. And it amazed me how, when it impacted my own family through no fault of our own, that it's frustrating for everybody. So when we rethink basic human needs, food, clothing, shelter, add reliable Wi-Fi to the list. Number 4, TikTok is funny. Okay, it's super annoying when kids have their cell phones out all the time in school. And this last school year, all the rage was TikTok, which at the beginning of the year I thought was kind of stupid and annoying. And maybe on some levels it kind of is, but it's actually kind of funny. A while back, kids, including my own, made weird faces when I even mentioned that I knew what TikTok was. Because see, old people like me shouldn't know about these things. What I've learned over the years is that when you take an interest in students' interests, rather than shutting it down, have some fun with it. And they might be embarrassed, they might be completely appalled, but kids are smart. And if you take an interest in their interest, they can teach you a thing or two as well. My favorite question to ask in class is, hey, how'd you do that? Show me how you did that. And let kids teach me. I have learned things about how to use different Google apps and search tools just by asking my kids, how did you do that? Collective learning goes a long way. And when we model it and learn from each other, when the time comes that we ask our students to do something difficult or time-consuming, I need only remind them that they had time to figure out how to make perfectly timed duet videos on TikTok. Hey, speaking of TikTok, I'm about to make a TikTok. Number 3, never let a good crisis go to waste. That's a quote that's sometimes attributed to Winston Churchill, although I haven't found absolute confirmation that he said it. It has been attributed to Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago. But really, when you think about it, while a lot of people have reflected upon the world at large, I have as well, I've reflected on my own world, both at home and at school. And while a crisis is never a good thing, and you certainly should never take advantage of a situation, I have definitely missed some of the normalcy of seeing my students, coaching water polo, going to my kids' sporting events and more, but perhaps this time away, this time to reflect and spend more time with family, slowing down and taking some time to just breathe has been necessary. So moving forward, I promise my current as well as my former and future students that this crisis has and will forever change who I am and how I teach. I will put your needs first, always. I've always tried to, but I promise in the future that it will be first and foremost what I do. I will reevaluate what is important because it has become abundantly clear to me that as I help my own students with their e-learning, I remember absolutely nothing that I learned in high school. Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm not bragging, I'm speaking truth. I want to make your experience in high school something memorable, not just a list of things that you learned, not just grades, not just stuff that you memorized for a test and then quickly forgot, but actual memorable experiences, things that you can take with you in life and be better because you learned them in my class. Number 2, student backpacks are heavy. I mean, really heavy. If you ever tried to lift one, it's ridiculous. I don't know what they carry around in them. I just cleaned them out in my house, and I was thankful that I didn't find a lunch from March. But they're heavy, and it's not just books and Chromebooks that weigh them down. Our students carry a lot with them to and from school every single day, whether it's in person or virtual. I can't just assume that on any given day, during any given class period or an e-learning session, that the most important thing to any student is learning history. They're carrying a lot in those backpacks, not just books, not just Chromebooks. As a teacher, I'm going to try in the future to lighten the load by, again, putting students before content, taking the time to say, hey, what's up? What's going on? How's your day? Those are little things that you can disconnect and care, because people matter and people need to come first. That's definitely something that I've learned this year from my students. Number 1, I love teaching, and it's because of the kids. I was once, a long time ago, asked in an interview why I wanted to be a history teacher. And I'm pretty sure that I gave some cliche response about wanting to teach history so that students can learn from the past or create a better future. And looking back, I had it all wrong. That all sounds nice, but in reality, don't we kind of do that every day when you reflect on your life and try to do better? These days, kids can find an answer to just about anything by asking Alexa, Siri, or Google. Like it or not, we teachers are no longer the go-to person for all knowledge of facts. We need to be teachers first, teachers. Content experts is a secondary thing. I love teaching. And history was my major in college, but I became a teacher because I absolutely love teaching people how to do things. I love teaching myself a new skill. I love going on YouTube and learning how to fix something. I love trying to figure out how to make something seemingly impossible work. I love a challenge that way. I love the feeling that you get when you help somebody figure out how to solve their own problem without doing it for them. Telling kids, figure it out. You can do this. You're smart. That's what I love. History is just the content that I happen to teach, but it's the teaching part that I really love, and it could be anything. I love teaching because it's like teaching a person to fish. Once you learn, you can eat for a lifetime. And if I've learned anything from my kids, it's that I absolutely love being their teacher. And I've had a great year, and I'm going to miss you all. Thanks for a great year.